Hi everyone, my name is Joseph Cotgrave. Myself and John, who you can see on the other screen, are going to be discussing today um, how, in times of isolation and the current pandemic that the whole world is going through, how we can kind of learn from the AIDS crisis. My background in HIV and AIDS is I was diagnosed when I was 19. And I produce a lot of artwork around that. I am based in Liverpool. So that's my kind of like relationship with HIV, but also working with homotopia quite a lot and stuff. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm John Henning. I live in Brooklyn. I live and work in Brooklyn. I'm a literary and visual artist. And a lot of my work is memory based, and a lot of those memories are surviving and living with AIDS.
So we've got like a few questions from the public which has been sent like privately. So what we're going to do now is just run through those questions and talk about how the AIDS crisis can relate to COVID-19 and its similarities and stuff. So the first question that myself and John will discuss is, what are your thoughts on abstinence style HIV prevention campaigns going around at the moment?
Governments do things, but they
Yeah,
can't suppress human need.
yeah.
And it's also kind of fucked up when you have someone like President Trump who refuses to wear a mask in public.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that is just ridiculous. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just, I actually just think,
that's the abstinence we need, is not having people like him around. But
yeah, agreed. I think like it's one rule for them and one rule for us. Like, it's just, and then that just convolutes the whole situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, this brings me back to the this brings me back to the 80s, when these right-wing bigots turned their backs on people dying of AIDS, because they wanted to appease their evangelical Christian base.
Yeah.
And people died, and Trump lies, and people die. Anyway.
How did you find living through that, John?
Well, when it was first happening, I was living in a small town in Arkansas, and there wasn't a lot of news about it. And so I was really unaware of what was going on. All I knew is that there was this cancer that they thought was being spread by doing poppers. And I ran away from home, and I worked for 7 months as a sex worker in the middle of an AIDS crisis. And there was a guy I met at a bar who was not a John. He was just a friend, a sex partner. And like 2 months after I met him, he died. And that was I was shocked. And I was more shocked when I started, when I became aware of ACT UP and the protest, and what Ronald Reagan and his cronies, what they were not doing to help out people who were dying. And that my own family supported that person. And I hate to admit it, but I actually voted for him. So it was a really fucked up time. And it's very much like what's going on with our government and our churches in this country with COVID. It's just denial. And but it's like a repeat of history. And I did get really angry about it, but I knew that I had to let that go. I'm still angry, but instead of protesting, I feel like the way that I can protest is with my work. And doing things like this.
I agree, especially with the idea of sometimes it feels really difficult to like be able to do anything about these like situations and like these times that we're in. But I feel like my work kind of gives me like a bit of a toolbox to hit back at like the far right and yeah, just try and change people's opinions because it is still like completely stigmatized being HIV positive, and I like I didn't live. I was diagnosed in 2013, and I was born in '93. Like, but so like I didn't live through like the AIDS crisis. But I think a real problem that we find today is the fact that there's I find in like a lot of my circles, the younger audience, the younger generation of like the HIV positive community isn't necessarily they're like allowed to have like an opinion because their sort of like story is like totally different. It's not about loss, it's about like what the way I interpret it, it's more about mental health, and the mental health that comes alongside of having a diagnosis. I struggle more not with being HIV positive, is with having PTSD, which like is something that I have to deal with every day.
I'm just going to say this. Just know that stigma, those who cast stigma, they're the ones with the problem, not you.
Yeah.
So just don't let any of that shit get you down. I mean, because if you do, then they win.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Put all of your emotion, find a way to put all of your emotions, your feelings, your anger, all of it into your work.
Yeah.
Because what you'll find, what I found, people respond and you start hearing from people.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of art. And so just, process your emotions. Don't deny them. Like, if you want to have a drink or you want to get stoned or whatever, do it, but don't allow that to be the way that you process your feelings.
Yeah.
Whatever substance you want to use to feel good, especially in a fucked up moment like this, then do it. And but don't let that be in control. You be in control.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I learned that from my therapist, because I felt myself going to get a bottle of wine like every 2 days, and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't cool. I don't want to like get like fat because I'm drinking.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel fucked up when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
And she was like, you need to have a drink. You need to get stoned. Whatever. She was like, whatever chemical you want to do right now, do it, have good sex, whatever. But just remember, you've got to stay focused on your work.
Yeah.
That's your job. So, yeah.
Anyway, I think something
totally
is another interesting question, and it kind of relates to what you were saying about Reagan as well and the media back then. Is has the way the media reports on COVID-19 changed for the worse or improved since the AIDS epidemic?
Well, I didn't pay enough attention to the news back then.
Yeah.
When I ran away, I had no TV, no nothing. So I didn't see a lot of news. And I was just caught up in trying to survive. But as far as the news goes now, I think the coverage is great. I think there needs to be more coverage of what our president says is fake news, because the fake news, which is not fake, is reporting the truth. And people need to hear the truth. And that's the way I see it.
See, like I think in the UK, I think I'm on the opposite ends of the spectrum with that, because I know like our media is not the truth. Like we're literally spun a lie constantly by the far right. like just in terms of like the death toll and stuff, like is not actually what they're saying. It all come out about how the fact they're not reporting people in like care homes and stuff, and that the people who were dying in care homes weren't part of the death toll. And I actually think in this country it's been dealt terribly with, like the pandemic. To see something like this happen in 2020, I feel like the world could have been. Actually, I think the West could have been a lot more prepared in terms of how they dealt with it. But I think the problem is with that is we live in a society where all like leaders, prime ministers, and presidents only care about the top 5%. They don't care about anyone else. They only really care about themselves, and all they care about is money.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah, money, and it's like completely fucked up because somehow, I don't know if it happens where you are, but in this country, the religious right and these far right politicians, somehow they're holy. They're holier than everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's like a con job. It's like con artist. And
yeah.
It's it's like a different form of terrorism.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Far right extremists that will do nothing. Nothing will stop them from stealing money and making money.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
everyone else, is starving. So
I think just in terms of like what I've read up on the AIDS epidemic and stuff, and people who I spoke to who like lived through it, I think back then like the reporting on it was absolutely disgusting. Like they literally used the idea of fear to stop people having sex, but the fear then never was disassociated. The fear of death was never disassociated from the idea of being diagnosed with HIV or AIDS. So that had like a knock-on effect. And I think I felt that when I was diagnosed because in this country, it was something like, I think every single household in the UK was sent a flyer which had like a big coffin on the front, and it was like a really infamous advert, like really scary. And I think that idea of using fear to drive a message into like the public can be really can be something really toxic, and it doesn't leave the public then, and because fear has like such bad connotations. And I think that's why now there's still a big stigma attached to HIV and stuff.
But fear is what they teach in the churches.
Yeah,
it's
and that's
fear.
why I disagree with it.
And so there's a sect of the population that they go to church, they hear this fear, and now they're hearing it from the President of the United States. They're hearing it from Rupert Murdoch's TV stations, and it's like ISIS. Fear. And so they gain masses of people that follow them who choose to live in fear.
Definitely.
That's not good, and that's not reality. But it saddens and it angers me that even my own mother is one of those people that truly believes in all of this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. Like, and it's like as if we've like history is that I know every like 30 years history is sort of like meant to repeat itself. But with this whole pandemic, if it's been like it's been 30 years now since the AIDS epidemic, and now we're going through COVID, and if it does feel like history is repeating itself.
It is, but what we have to do is we have to be above that. And yeah, we're not going to allow ourselves to be in denial of what really is going on.
Yeah.
We have to record this with our work. And we have to do it. And I keep looking at, I'm having a senior moment, so I can't remember the name of the film or the video, but I keep looking at David Wojnarowicz.
Yeah.
When he was ranting that when he's, what is the name of that? Well, I can't remember it. And at one point he just goes, America, America. And I keep thinking, like, if he were alive today, I think he'd probably either say, I told ya, or he'd be laughing.
Yeah.
Not at the situation, but at the church and the state, and how it is a total failure.
Oh yeah, I think it's failed us all really, like, and I think more so in just how pretty much the whole world is run by like the far right, and
well, it is right now.
Yeah,
but
I think hopefully out of this it will bring a change.
Well, I think I've been looking at COVID as a cleanse.
Yeah.
A cleanse for the world. And hopefully it's not going to cleanse people like us, artists and thinkers and writers and dancers.
Yeah.
That it's going to cleanse this evil that surrounds us and that does control us right now, or that wants to control us.
Yeah.
And I hope that happens. And we'll see what happens in November here with our election. But,
yeah.
Like, you know, people have to vote.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to change, hopefully.
Yeah.
So.
I've got another question. Sorry, John.
Okay.
Yeah. So has the current pandemic been triggering for those suffering with HIV? How do you think? How do you think? Do you think it has been triggering for people suffering with HIV?
It's triggered a lot of emotions and feelings, and a lot of people are just at a loss. They don't know. I see it on the streets. There are people who just look like complete zombies.
Yeah.
Just walking around like, I mean, I don't know what it's like where you are, but in this town, it's weird. It's really weird. You go down Fifth Avenue or in Manhattan or the financial district, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
There's police everywhere. There's surveillance everywhere. But I mean, the beautiful thing is that there aren't all the tourists. There's less pollution.
Yeah.
The sky is blue, the birds chirp, the streets are clean.
Yeah.
But there's not that rush to go out and be somewhere.
Yeah.
To do what everyone else is doing. And I think that's sort of a beautiful thing, is that this is an opportunity for all of us to really look at ourselves and look at the world around us and take notice at what we are doing in our daily lives, from the time we wake up until the time we go to sleep. And to try to not forget, but just accept that, this is the situation that we are in. It's completely fucked up. But try to project what life is going to be like for you when this ends. And so, like, just make as much work as you can.
Yeah.
This is like your opportunity to do it. And also, as an artist, apply for everything that you can apply for. Yeah,
that's pretty much what happens. Everyone really is just applying for loads of stuff. But I do definitely think it has been. I think when we first went into lockdown in the UK, it was quite scary for me, because it was like something that you sort of never really think would happen, and then it also just the idea of isolation was quite triggering for me, because I don't necessarily.
Have you ever experienced it before?
No, and I think I don't particularly in myself, just with my mental health and stuff. I don't like being on my own too much. So the idea of like having to really lock down and, you know, spend time with your thoughts, it's been quite, in a way, quite beneficial, because I've had to do it. But it's like it's been quite. I think at the time it was quite shocking to be able to have to do it. Really, it was quite scary, the thought of it.
Have you made a to-do list?
Yeah, I'm like halfway through it, so yeah.
Yeah, I've made a to-do list, and I think I'm halfway,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and I'm gonna take. I mean, I haven't really started working on it yet, but
yeah,
I have to finish my next book. But
yeah,
yeah, so yeah, try to enjoy this moment that we're in. Find
yeah,
a way to do it.
yeah. Um, so there's another question as well. It's how does living with HIV in 2020 differ from the 80s and previous time periods, especially now with our current pandemic?
In the 80s, when my friends and lovers started to get sick, or
Yeah,
they got sick, I could be there for them.
yeah,
And but there were a lot of people, I mean, more than I've lost count, but there were so many that I didn't get to say goodbye to.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And with COVID, I've lost one friend to COVID. I know one other person that just was infected. And with Janice, who died, there was no goodbye.
yeah,
And she was the receptionist at my gym.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
the gym reopens and I go there,
It's going to be different. Yeah,
well, I mean, yeah, because like she was always there. I loved going there first thing in the morning before anyone else was there because I like to be alone.
yeah,
And and no matter how bad she might be feeling, because she also had a full-time job
hmm,
other than just the gym, she would, yeah, she was always, she always asked me how I was doing. If she was busy when I would leave the gym, I would just say, see ya. And she knew my voice. And she would just like, without even looking up, she would say, like, have a good day, John. Or,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and, and that's just one person that I'll never see again.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I think
and
it is awful. Like the fact that funerals can't really take place. I think it really messes up like the grieving process. It allows people, well, people can't really grieve if they lose anyone to COVID. I don't think, and I think that
people,
that's going to be felt through right into the future, because those people who've lost people actually just won't be able to grieve.
no,
In
but
yeah,
they'll have to find a new way to grieve.
yeah, yeah,
And, and even though, like, we've never met before until now,
yeah,
but so this tool is providing this opportunity. And yeah, people can't go to funerals, people can't fly to go to a funeral,
yeah,
um, but they can watch the funeral live.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And for me, I much prefer it that way. I hate funerals.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
my mother's really ill and I don't want to go home again ever. And
yeah,
so if she were to pass, like during this period, of course I would miss her and grieve and be terribly upset, but at least I wouldn't have to go there.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
could watch it on my computer.
yeah.
I know that sounds terrible, but yeah.
I think the idea of like digital media is allowing is easing the situation really for people. What do you think?
Well, I think it is. Like, I love seeing my therapist like this. I feel
Yeah,
like I'm more open with her. And I don't know, when I'm in her office, it's such a small room. I kind of feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
And I see my psychiatrist this way. I see my doctor. Um, but things are starting to open up and get better because my doctor's office called last week, and I'm going in next month to have my
yeah,
labs done.
yeah,
So, and I know that I'll have to go through a whole temperature check and all that stuff to get into the office,
yeah,
but at least I can have my labs done.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I know definitely. Like it is starting to be eased here as well, but I think it really did help, like the idea of digital media, and I do think that's where like COVID completely differs in comparison to the AIDS crisis, because back then there weren't any means of like contacting people in the way that we have now.
I have a weird question.
Yeah,
Would it be cool if we each ask each other a question?
yeah, one, yeah.
So can you tell me what it was like when you found out that you were HIV positive? Did you feel feelings of guilt, or were you relieved, or did you care? Or was it just the stigma associated with it that kind of fucked with your mind?
Yeah, I'd say I definitely felt guilty. I felt like quite shamed as well. Like, I found out over the phone, which was really bad. It shouldn't have really happened because I didn't necessarily have the support right there.
And
I
why did you get tested?
Just general practice. I was doing so anyway. Yeah, and I know it when a feeling of relief. It was a feeling of being terrified. Like I was 19. I didn't really. I hadn't really had the best sexual health. Like teaching in school was just terrible. Like, and I really struggled with it. It gave me, like I did mention before, it gave me PTSD just because it was so traumatic to like go through that. And actually, I was like really uneducated on it, which is why I do work about it now, because I would like people to be a bit more educated on it. And I find art to be more accessible than like a textbook or reading something online. Um, so yeah, like the idea of when I was diagnosed, it was awful. I thought I was going to die. Like I really struggled with my mental health for ages. I think that was because I was diagnosed so young as well. Like 19 is not an age where you want to think about your mortality. Um, you you know what I mean? Like you just at that age, you just don't. You kind of just go around thinking you're invincible. So kind of just shocked my whole world, really. Yeah.
So how soon after the diagnosis did you start taking medication?
So I was diagnosed in 2013, I think. And back then, you didn't, in the UK, you didn't go straight onto medication. So that really fucked with my head for 2 years after being diagnosed. I was like, I had like my bloods tested. And yeah, every 3 months I like had to basically wait for my bloods to come down to like a low level to go on medication. But I had this like weird strain of the virus called a elite controller. So that meant like my body could control the virus. So like my bloods weren't coming down or like yeah, anything like that. So
And if you could say anything to anyone in your community who, someone who's 19,
yeah.
um, and they're wondering or questioning not their sexuality, but like if you had any advice to give a 19-year-old who's sexually active, what would that be?
I think just be like speak to people about it. Like don't be ashamed. Do you know what I mean? Don't be ashamed to ask questions. Like and get tested regularly. I just think sexual health is super important. Yeah, I think speak to people. Yeah, speak to your friends, family, and just make sure you're being open and also honest with yourself.
So were you not open and honest with yourself when that happened? Or
Yeah, I would say I was, yeah. But I just weren't educated enough on the idea of HIV and stuff. Yeah.
and I'm going to ask this, and yeah. So how soon after you were diagnosed did
Yeah.
you feel comfortable having sex again?
It took me a while. It took me a long time, really. And yeah, it felt really uncomfortable. I'd say that only recently, like, yeah.
did you experience, like, was it difficult for you to share with your sexual partners, or did you share with them that you were HIV positive?
Yeah, but I got like, my reaction was awful. Like
Your reaction or their reaction?
their reaction, sorry. They like would like shame me or like slut shame me, or yeah, I just had a lot of terrible experiences with that. And that was really through Grindr, and also the people that I'd slept with, like, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Question.
Um, yeah, how did you, when, so you spoke about sex work.
Yeah.
Um, how did you, so were you diagnosed, um, how
Well,
was it being a sex worker back through that time?
it was scary and it was fun. I was more afraid, I wasn't really afraid of AIDS. Um, I was more afraid of getting arrested.
Yeah,
And that was my biggest fear, as fucked up as that may sound. And no, there was no there was no safe sex being a sex worker in 1983. Like, you just went to the location and you did whatever the person wanted you to do.
yeah,
And it wasn't easy. And there were a lot of creeps, a lot of dirty old men, a lot of
yeah,
really fucked up people. But you know, that's the situation that I was in.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it was also a way to rebel against the Southern Baptist Church and my Christian family and their American values and their morals, which that's the way that they think, though. And I kind of liked being a runaway.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
Thrilling, and and there was a coping mechanism that I wasn't even aware of back then. I'm aware of it now because I make work about it, but that was playing Pac-Man.
yeah,
And I played every day. It was like an addiction.
really,
And it just took me to a place where I could escape the reality of what I was doing.
yeah,
Because, I felt really bad about myself.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I started having low self-esteem. Um, but I knew I wasn't going to do it forever. But the great thing about it is while I was a sex worker, that's when I first ever heard about Keith Haring.
yeah,
There was another sex worker that would come around. He didn't live at the place where I lived, which was the service. Um, and one day he had the newspaper and he was talking about this subway artist that got arrested.
yeah,
And a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, I came to New York to do what this guy is doing. Who is this person?
yeah, yeah,
And it said in the article that he sold paintings at Tony Schaffarzi Gallery for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he also sold T-shirts with his work on it
yeah,
at
yeah,
Patricia Fields for $20. So I went to Pat's store the next day and I bought a T-shirt, and I wore that T-shirt everywhere. And yeah, and but it was frightening, and like, and I met a guy at a bar one night, and he was just a guy. I wasn't charging him. I was having fun, and I went home
yeah,
with him. And then he died 2 months later. And then when I left the service, other friends that I had met outside of the service started getting sick and were dying. And I just didn't stop well, there was a part of me that thought, what have I done to my body?
yeah,
But there was another part of me that was like, I don't want to know if I'm infected.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
I think,
I never got tested. I
yeah,
never got tested until I got sick in 1995.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And they said, well, you're not only HIV positive, but you're full-blown AIDS and you have 6 months to live. And I was like, fuck you.
yeah,
So, and I
yeah,
think it was that thinking, fuck you, which is a big reason why I'm here. Just staying focused
yeah,
on what I need to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you think sex work has been, well, I know it definitely has been, but how do you think the relationship between, well, what do you think the relationship between COVID-19 is and sex workers?
I know one person who's a sex worker today. Well, I know two, but I only know one of them really well. And she's busier than ever.
Yeah, right.
And she recently shared a story with me that she was in Las Vegas. This is just before COVID really hit. And she was in Las Vegas at a gun show.
Yeah.
And she's trans and beautiful. And she's on Grindr.
Mm-hmm.
And she met a guy who was in Las Vegas also for the gun show, but he's straight and married and like a conservative. And they ended up going to the gun show together. And after the gun show, he wanted to have sex with her. And so
Yeah.
she told him what it was going to cost, and they did it.
Yeah.
So, you know, sex is sex, COVID is COVID. And none of us know really what the protection is. Yeah, we can wear a mask, we can social distance, but there's no vaccine, there's no cure.
Yeah.
So sex work or non-sex work, people are going to have sex.
Yeah.
And they should.
Yeah.
And how though are you responsible having sex in COVID? I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
So sex work, COVID, it's like, I'd rather die of sex than COVID. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but or if that even makes sense. But you know, it's something that's part of our lives now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And yeah, I probably didn't answer the question, but that's my answer.
I do think it's interesting. Like, I know I've seen like on social media and stuff, sex workers have really struggled. Yeah, because like, yeah, the industry has sort of took like a bit of a hit. But I think that is like something that is just going to become a new normal, really, and just how we move forward might be like the way we interact more might be through like digital media and stuff like that.
Like I've been thinking, like, how do we exist as artists? I mean, the whole
Yeah.
world is trying to figure out how to exist. Like, what are openings going to be like?
Yeah.
What are art events? Even like this event that we're doing, I don't know what Homotopia is, how big it was in the past, but it's going to happen this year.
Yeah. No,
And
like,
that's great.
yeah, it is. It's weird. It is really weird to think about like how like the art world is so like based in the public realm, but the idea of like public gatherings and stuff is like really like, yeah, it doesn't happen at the moment. So it's like,
I think one thing that I want to do that I haven't done since this, because I've been trying to make more work, and I started doing this before COVID, but like, how do you package and monetize, you know, what we do? And I hate having to think that way, but we have to exist.
Yeah.
So how do we do what we do? And
Which is sustainable.
yeah, it's like, so yeah, I used the streets for a few years as my gallery, and I sort of stopped doing that to focus on my paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And but I feel like this is a good opportunity to go out on the streets in the middle of the night and put some work up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because people are paying attention now to what's going on out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm probably gonna soon one night go out there and put a bunch of posters up, like on the windows of really nice stores like Prada or Louis Vuitton in Soho.
Yeah.
Just to do it. I would love to do it at one of the Trump buildings, but I would probably get in trouble for that. So.
Yeah. But yeah, that was that. I feel like we've pretty much got it from there.
Okay. And then something personal, like if you find yourself in a funk, like, don't hesitate to FaceTime.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we have to do now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great talking to you, John.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see you Sunday.
See you Sunday. Bye. Bye. Hi everyone. Yeah, so thanks for watching the video. Myself and John now will just answer some of the questions just whilst we the questions that you've asked over the live stream. John, you need to unmute your audio. Yeah, great, perfect. So we have a question, John, from Jamie, and it is: do you think storytellers should draw parallels between the two epidemics, or simply draw inspiration to tell stories from what was told before? What stories would you like to see told?
Well, I think, yes, definitely we should. People look to artists during times like this for answers and for guidance. What stories?
I think as well as artists, we have a responsibility to respond to the political climate. I think if artists are doing it, then art is just really a commodity and it's just for aesthetic purposes. Yeah, I think it's really important to respond to the political climate through art.
What stories would you like to see told? I'm totally open. The story I'd really like to see told is for someone from the church or from the United States government to say, I'm sorry, we fucked up. And I'm sorry that
that will never
I know, but I think someone needs to say, yeah, we accept that we have committed these crimes against humanity for decades, for centuries.
Yeah. And in a way, it's like what's going on at the moment. A mass genocide. Like, and it happened with the AIDS crisis as well, of how many people were died and ignored. Yeah.
I mean, there are millions of missing Black men and women in this country, all around the world, who are murdered because of the color of their skin and because of the hatred. And if conservatives had their way, Joseph and I wouldn't be here right now. We would have been wiped out during the 80s. But we're here and we have to tell our stories, to record this moment in time that we see as two gay men living with something in our veins that connects us and connects us to people around the world.
We've got another question from which is, what is the difference between loneliness and aloneness now?
There isn't a difference. I think, yeah, we just need to be in this moment and survive together and tell our stories. There's that silence equals death. We will not be silent.
I think it's important.
I think as well it's important to
I did speak about this in the everyone's 15. I think it's important to sorry, the sound on this is confusing me a bit. I think it's important to realise that now we have a means of digital media to like stay in touch with people, which I think has definitely eased the loneliness in lockdown. Because we can get, but back in the 80s, like didn't have those means.
I think loneliness in this time, if you choose to be lonely, then you're lonely. We can't control what's happening outside of our homes, of our spaces, but we can control what happens in our spaces, and that's not lonely. I think that's sort of intimate, and it's an opportunity for us to all come together. We can protest. I choose not to. For many different reasons, and I choose to protest with my work.
Yeah. There's a anonymous question, which is, how can we keep sharing art, in particular visual art, during times of social distancing?
Instagram. WhatsApp. We can go out on the streets when it's cool, when we're not, I mean, there's surveillance everywhere, but like I like to do it late at night and just, spray paint, burn down the White House, or Ivanka cunt, or Ivanka KKK. We have to continue to act up and tell our story.
I think it's important. Now as well. I know I've kind of struggled with being able to like create new work, for example, which is actually another question that has been asked by Alex from the Homotopia team. So the question is, what projects have we been working on? And you mentioned how important it is to create at this time. So, what projects have we been working on, John?
I've been working on what you see behind me, which is work based on memories of being a runaway, a sex worker in the 80s. During the AIDS epidemic, and the failure of our government at an executive level to do anything about the crisis. Our government, our Christians, our evangelical Christians, turned their back on gay men who were dying of AIDS, and connecting those memories to what's happening now. Not only COVID, but the murder of another innocent Black man. And that's what I'm working on.
I have actually took a bit of a break from making any sculpture of that, because I can't really do sculpture from home. And my studio is in Liverpool, so I haven't been going like public transport or anything because of coronavirus, and I can't have access to the studio. It's kind of been really nice actually. I've gone kind of back to basics, and I've just been drawing a lot, which has been really nice, and it's felt kind of therapeutic to be going back to drawing. I actually have one here. I can show you. This is like, so basically I've just been looking at some of my favorite photographers and drawing them. So that's kind of what I've been doing, but I've also been applying for a lot of stuff, and recently had really great news from Arts Council, and was awarded funding to cover like my losses over COVID-19, which is actually going to take me on to like applying for like residencies and stuff, and being able to spend time not actually worrying about just solely bringing an income in, which is great. But yeah, so yeah, we have one last question now, because we're going to try and finish up soon, just because it's really nice out and stuff. So the question, John, is for us: isn't the great challenge ahead to reclaim physical touch as a means of relating and sympathizing with each other?
Touch, like how do we touch again? Like when is touch okay? I think now more than ever, touch is what we all need. We all need love. And I think about David Wojnarowicz and when he spoke and he talked about the chaos in his head, the pressure in his head. And I think about the white cop who, with his foot, killed an innocent black man, Floyd. And how do we touch again? I'm trying to figure that out.
I think it's an interesting question, because I think distancing is going to stay around for a long, long time. But yeah, it is that is something that I've struggled with, is not having that human contact. Because I think that has an impact on the feelings of like loneliness and stuff, not having that like normal everyday human contact. Like God, I think the only person I've hugged through lockdown is my mum, and that was on my birthday. But like yeah, it is that I do think it's important for us now to think about how we move forward with this, and how we move forward with a new normal, really. Yeah. But yeah, I think they're pretty much all the questions that we've touched upon. So yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to everyone for attending the event. I hope you've enjoyed it. This will be on YouTube now for the future. So if there was any bits that you missed, or if you want to share, feel free. That would be really great. But yeah, it's been really great doing this, and I think it's been really nice being able to do this with John, who's in like in New York, and it's interesting to see how the similarities between our point of views match up. Yeah. John, do you want to say anything?
Well, I want to say thank you. Like, it's been a pleasure doing this and getting to hear your stories. And please keep sharing them, because your story, our stories, they connect us, and they make us who we are.
Great. Yeah, and I think our social medias are attached somewhere down here. So if you have any more questions, just follow us and message us. Yeah, great. See you later, everyone.
Bye.